Well, hi everybody. On the day of recording, it's both Christmas and Hanukkah. To celebrate the occasion, I've decided to read one of my favorite biblical stories about one of my favorite biblical heroes. That's right. I'm reading Stranger in a Strange Land about Michael Valentine Smith and Jubal Harshaw. Stranger in a Strange Land is one of my all-time favorite books. I might want to distance myself from it, partly because Musk is so attached to it, and also it hasn't aged that well upon rereading. But I've read it about 5 times. It's one of my all-time favorite books ever in the world. It's amazing. It is such a perfect piece of satire, science fiction, spirituality. It really, it's taught me to be a better person in a wide variety of ways. The more I think about it, the deeper I think about that book. Every time I revisit it, I think about it I see more things, and I think about it in another way as I revisit it, and I feel such deep love for that book. And it is with equal revulsion that when I hear someone like Musk or like Jordan Peterson co-opting a book so magnificent for the right. First of all, did they even fucking read it? Musk definitely. Jordan Peterson, I mean, he read it, but he doesn't remember it, or he doesn't know how to read, and he's never read anything. It's hard to tell with him. He's just so full of shit. It's coming out everywhere. It's on everywhere. It's now on me now just talking about it. And we'll probably have to do a whole separate episode just about Jordan Peterson's reading list, because it is basically all the left-leaning books that I've ever loved. And whatever. It's a good book. I love it. And it's great. Y'all should read it. Everybody, Cody, everybody, especially Cody, David Christopher Bell, and Cody, and everybody else. Right, left, rich, poor. Everybody should read that book. Just 1 time, 2 times, 10 times, as many times as it takes to understand, as many times as it takes to Grok? What does Grok mean, anyway? First things first, the correct pronunciation of Grok is more like a GRK. In the book, it's described as a cross between a bullfrog and a cat, like a bullfrog getting in a fight with a cat. He uses a lot of colorful similes in that way. It's great. That's one of the more memorable ones. So try to croak like a frog. So all right, and then try to bring a GRK and a meow in there. Kind of like that. So that is how Grok is pronounced. You're welcome. Okay, now, since I never want to do that again in that way, we're going to say it the way people know how to say it. It's Grok, not right? Grok is not about understanding. Grok is about empathy. Grok is about empathy on some weird, complicated layers. He was really trying to lay it out for us in this book. Like it's really in there. Like he's got a message. Mr. Heinlein has a message for us, and it is magnificent. Stranger in a Strange Land takes place in a version of Earth somewhere in the distant future. We got a whole bunch of people together, this version of Earth. We get all of the scientists together who are not just the best specimens in their field. They're like combination best biologists and best medicine, and like they all have multiple skills. So they're good at communication and agriculture. They're good at being a doctor and an engineer. One of them's a pilot, and also 6 other things. They're all like, they have a lot of accolades, they have a lot of prestige, and they've also been checked for compatibility, sexual compatibility with each other. And they chose married couples to go up there. They figured people who are already in a relationship might be better off. So they circle around Mars, they fly over there, they circle around, they send probes to the surface, and they're like, everything looks great, we'll be landing at 1200 hours tomorrow. And they're never heard from again. And so they try to send another probe, and while the other probe is on its way to Mars, World War III breaks out, and so they're too busy with World War III to check on how that probe did, and they couldn't send people for a while, so they just sent the probe. After World War III is resolved, and this is at the beginning, this is chapter 1 of this book. World War III has already happened, it's already happening. So they send a third group to check on everything, and they're like, oh, no life form, we found the wreckage, there's no life forms, correction, there's one life form. And meanwhile on Earth, the results of World War III are a one world government. The one world government is run by the United Nations, so that the leader of the world is the Secretary General, in this case a guy named Joseph Douglas. He mostly factors into the story to be self-serving and power-hungry, and also kind of clueless in his own household, and not the one who's really pulling his own strings. There's a lot of great satire in this thing. They really Heinlein does a really good job of immersing us in his world. He has commercials on the TV that they were like Malthusian lozenges, and then some pretty girls on the screen, and she's like, I always take my Malthusian lozenges. It's just goofy shit like that. Like they stopped this book for some fake commercials to make fun of the world, and it's just stuff like that. It permeates the book. There isn't a chapter that goes by where he's not doing some sort of biting social critique in the process of telling the story and bringing it back to here and now, being 1961, but still here and now, because this book is more relevant than it was back then, which is why I'm coming up with this video to begin with. I mean, I'm surprised people haven't been talking about it as much. In this society, like there's still a president of the United States, there's still heads of states, but they're all treated like the governors of the United States are treated now. It's like each country is just a state of the union of the one world government, except for Antarctica, which is the free state of Antarctica. And in the book, he claims that it's worse in Antarctica than Mars. But Neil deGrasse Tyson might disagree with that. That third ship brings Mike Michael Valentine Smith. He's the main character. He's the man from Mars, and they bring him back to Earth, and they immediately bring him to a hospital, which he kind of needs because it's the change in gravity between Mars and Earth. He's now feels a lot heavier than he used to did, and he's suffering in his own way, but he's mostly just like happy to be here, and he thinks that everyone on the Champion is his water brother. And this is one of the most essential aspects of the entire book. There's a water sharing ceremony, and in fact the word Grok means to drink in its most basic terms. To drink. They'll be like, I give you water, and then they bring it to their lips. They take a sip. May you always drink deep, brother. They'll say things like that because Mars doesn't have water. It's one of their most valuable resources, and it's precious to them. There's parts in the book where he's like, he's surprised that human beings take their wealth so casually. It says a lot about us as a culture, even now, especially now that we just take water for granted, we take air for granted, we just think all these things are just going to keep happening while we keep polluting them and wasting them, going through them wastefully. It's not an infinite resource in that way. It's an infinite resource as in it keeps cycling through as long as we allow it to. But if we keep trapping it in pools, or I don't know, we do what we do, it's not gonna end well for us. So yeah, once you've shared a cup of water with Michael Valentine Smith, you're basically you owe each other forever. It's not really owe, but like you're in trouble, he's got your back. He's in trouble, you gotta have his back, and he's the man from Mars, so he's all caught up in all kinds of drama from the minute he arrives on Earth until his immaculate end. Sorry if that's a spoiler. I'm trying not to talk about the ending as much. I am going to be spoiling other books. So they're keeping him in the hospital basically as a prisoner, even though he doesn't really understand what's happening to him. He's just happy. He's just along for the ride. It's such a Martian attitude to be on the journey and not the destination. So he's just along for the ride. Hospital seems like a good place for him. The doctor watching after him is the doctor from the Champion. So he's it makes sense to him. It's the same guy as watching after him when he was that he met on Mars is hanging out with him on Earth. So he doesn't think it's anything weird about it. But no one's allowed to see him, which kind of makes sense because like they're trying to protect him, but what they're really trying to do is take all his assets away from him. It's like the most important thing to Secretary Douglas, that he shows up and tries to get him to sign a contract, sign away his rights when Michael Valentine Smith doesn't even speak English yet. And like, don't get me wrong, he learns it super fast. He's a really fast learner. It's one of the other key things in the book. It's super important. This guy is a powerful character, and everyone wants a piece of the dude, like in their own way. All these reporters are coming into the hospital. All these people are talking about him. They're like, "Is it true he's never seen a woman before?" And they're projecting all of their preconceived notions, sexual notions on Michael Valentine Smith, who's just like completely unaware of gender differences. Where was I? Martian culture. The old ones. So Martian death is different from human death They don't understand murder or war or any of that. They can't allow, they don't allow themselves to have severe emotions. If people got as angry at, if Martians got as angry as each other as people do, they would just discorporate immediately. They would just fall apart. They would literally fall apart and die. They're just like, oh my god, this is too much anger. Death. When they die, they become old ones, regardless. In various parts of the book, the old ones are referred to as ghosts, and in the minds, in the viewpoint of Martians, it's very real. It's very real, and it's not like they, oh, I believe in ghosts. That's how they treat their old ones. It's just like, oh, he just came to visit. He just came. He has some advice for me. He had a lesson I needed to learn, so he came and talked to me. Stuff like that. So Michael Valentine Smith escapes with the help of Gillian Boardman and Ben Caxton. Gillian is known as Jill throughout the book. I think of her as Jill. One of my favorite things from somewhere deep in the book, it's one of those really important lessons. Like, Jill doesn't necessarily think highly of her own physical appearance, though she is confident and, for the most part, sex positive. There's one part in the middle of the book where she's out of character, like hating on another guy for liking naked pictures. But other than that particular scene, she's rather sex positive, and she knows herself, but she's also like, a girl can't be too fussy these days, or, you know, I guess I put on some pounds, or, you know, kind of saying little things towards the beginning of the book. But in the middle of the book, Michael Valentine Smith is looking at her, and he's like, man, you know, she's beautiful. She has her own face. I really like that she has her own face. That's such a powerful expression of individual beauty, and like, I don't know. That's the kind of demisexual kind of attitude that I personally appreciate a lot. There's other things like that. There's a lot of moments where there's appreciation and respect for women in small but powerful ways. There's a lot of disrespect and a lot of like stuff that seemed very normal at the time, and I think that's kind of a balance. It's hard to tell exactly how much of that Heinlein was into and how much of the positivity, but it seems like he was leaning towards the positivity. This book was a labor of love. He's definitely the type of person, much like Harshaw himself. I haven't talked about Harshaw. Okay, so Jubal Harshaw, they escape to his house in the Poconos. He's got a few acres over there. He's a very wealthy man. He's about 90. Everybody loves him. And he's still got all kinds of fight in him. He's always trying to do the right thing. He's a cool dude. He was a doctor and a lawyer and still has his credentials, but for the most part he just sits around in a bathing suit by the pool all day while his 3 gorgeous secretaries cook and clean for him. And he'll sit there and he'll stare at their bodies, and then in the book they say he hooks his brain up to his gonads, which is kind of gross, but it gives you a sense of who he is as a person, as like because in other scenes he'll talk about how he used to be he used to be like that, but he's lost interest in sex, but the aesthetic beauty is still there. So he's trying to connect emotionally. He doesn't understand at this moment that he knows how to grok and is grokking. He's connecting his brain through to his gonads, but that's the seventh through the first chakra. So it's, again, some of this stuff comes out problematic in hindsight, but I like what I perceive to be that intention. I like that, the perceived intention. I've chosen to interpret it this other way, where he's trying to connect to his gut level, his to that emotional state while thinking of a story, and it's really freaking cool. He'll just like the Highland is a pretty prolific writer, and so this guy will just start talking. He'll just be like, front, and whoever is next in line runs over. They're like, yes, boss, and it's like, write this down under such and such a pen name. He just says weird shit like that. He's one of my favorite literary characters, period. It's not because of this stuff. I mean, it's not the words he's saying, but it's the way that he's saying them and how people interact with him and how he takes that interaction. There's a lot of examples, and I wrote so many down that I've kind of buried myself. I can't even. He's like, he's just always talking shit. He's just always talking shit. I don't even need to go. I don't need to get into my own notes here. He's a fucking character. He is so cool on some next level that we all wish that we could be when we're 90 years old. He is like just the angriest old man, and it's awesome. It's yeah, and all the other characters, like if he starts complaining too much, these three women, they cook, they're paid to do this. I mean, they're live-in servants. They do all this cooking and cleaning, and they always do a good job. They're, at the beginning of the book, they're like, they're the three of the best secretaries in the world. So I mean, they always do they do their very best, and their best is better than other people's. Maybe not everyone's, but I mean, the best in the world suggests maybe that they are. It's could be a matter of perception from Harshaw's point of view, or no need to digress. The thing is that he can just bust out a story off the top of his head, and he has his secretary write it down. And if he starts getting too uppity about the quality of their work, then the three women pick his old ass up and throw him in the pool. And then he'll come out of the water like it ain't no thing, like it didn't happen. And you're like, start behaving himself. Like he lets them punish him if he misbehaves, if he becomes too disrespectful, and he lets them talk. Like, he'll talk shit and they can throw it right back in his face, and he just takes it. He said sometimes he'll recover and be like, he'll talk harder shit in response. He's got, like, his wit is just right there. So it's admirable. I'm really impressed. All right, let's get a little sidetracked. I have some favorite characters, and I like my characters spicy. I like them sassy, and I like them weird. Jubal Harshaw for me is way up there with Willy fucking Wonka. Willy Wonka and Jubal Harshaw are they're my gods. I worship, like, for me, those are the prophets of a new, like, two among others. Like, one of my other favorite characters is from Naked Lunch, Dr. Benway, from the books, not the movie. They really, I love David Cronenberg, but I do not think he did a good job adapting Naked Lunch. I feel like maybe that should have been a TV series. They said it's unfilmable, but I could see some other ways of handling the situation besides how he handled it. I don't know. But the Naked Lunch, the book, Dr. Benway is just like so unhinged that even though he's a villain, he's the bad guy in the story, you can't help but liking him somehow. Like he'll be in surgery and he'll be killing a patient in the operating room, just being incompetent, and he's more concerned about snorting some cocaine than he is about the patient. And then he's like, "The patient's dead, doctor," and they're like taking off his gloves, like, oh well, all in a day's work. It's all in a day's work. Just like it doesn't even matter. And so Harshaw's like the positive. He doesn't let anyone stop him. He doesn't let anyone talk shit to him. He'll walk right up to Secretary Douglas and be like, "You're gonna respect the man from Mars. You're gonna give him his due as a sovereign ambassador." And so they like draw up a flag. It's like it's a red flag with the little with the Martian symbol on it. and it's they have him do this song by Gustav Holst, the Martian Movement of the Nine Planets and the Symphony of the Nine Planets, and they just have him and he has a whole power play. He's like touching Michael on the legs and stuff or wherever. He's giving very subtle signals, and that's the subtle hand signal thing is also from Dune. There are a lot of parallels between Dune. Anyway, so he's standing at certain parts. He got it to where Senator Doug or Secretary Douglas stands for his own anthem, like in the democratic way, and then Michael Valentine Smith sits down like the Queen of freaking England, listening to the anthem, and doesn't stand up until it's over, as like a quick little bow, and then sits back down, and everyone notices this power play, and even though there's like 5 of them at first, he insists on having the whole half of the room to themselves, and then starts inviting people over to like to gain numbers, and it's a really cool lost scene because there's all these slick power plays, and Harshaw's seeing through all the bullshit, and Secretary Douglas is throwing stooges at him, and he's just talking shit against the stooges. He's like, if my name's not on that list, you could just rip that whole paper up. It's like, he's the lawyer for the man from Mars. I mean, of course he's supposed to be there. Dude's looking at the seating chart. He's like, who are you supposed to be? He's like, you don't recognize me? I'm 90 years old, and I wrote all your favorite TV shows. Like, yeah, that's like part of why he's safe, is that everyone knows who he is. That's a big deal at the beginning of the book. That's how they establish him as a character. Everyone knows who he is. He's a doctor, he's a lawyer, which is great because Michael Valentine Smith needs both. He can read some Arabic, which is great because he's going to meet Dr. Mahmoud. But so there's, oh god, I buried that in my notes too. That's over here though. Okay, I think I found that. They have all these sayings. They go through like how mi casa is su casa, my nest is your nest. Ke aloha pae ole. Ma ke aloha pae ole. Right? Love everlasting. There's all these ways of saying it. So to drink is the simple one. But then it's like as thinking creatures. Fear, love, and hate are all synonyms for Grok. And when they say hate, this is for Cody Johnston specifically. Psst, Cody. Psst, Cody. I'm going to just go ahead and read this part. Okay. You cannot hate anything unless you grok it. Understand it so thoroughly that you merge with it. It merges with you. Then you hate. Then you are hating yourself. And loving yourself too. Cherishing the thing you hate. And you could not have it any other way. Martian hate is an emotion so black that a human feeling hate by comparison could only ever feel mild distaste. Because when you really know somebody and you really understand, then you can really truly hate Cody Johnston. It's not enough to just hate things from afar. It's not enough to hate things without exploring what they mean and what they're about and how they tick. It's not enough to ignore this significant book about Mars. Mars all the time. Mars forever.
Mars forever!
And for that, they got flying cars. They escaped from the hospital in a flying car. Reporter Ben Caxton is then arrested through... He's trying to call... He's using the taxi video's phone to call Secretary Douglas. They track his location. They put him in a cell. They drug him up. And when they're ready to find him, because they can't kill him for political reasons, they need to keep him alive for a while. And so when Harshaw demands his return, they find him just drunk on a sidewalk in Mexico, and he doesn't remember the last week of his life. He's just in another country. Like he got arrested in DC, and he wakes up in Mexico City, and he's just like doesn't know, just like wearing the same clothes, just in a gutter, and on one, just on one, and he doesn't know where he is or what's going on. And then they just ship him back because someone powerful enough to request his presence was able to do so. That's Harshaw, and he's just always, like, every step of the way. Like, he might talk shit every step of the way. He is doing his best to look after Michael Valentine Smith and Jill and Ben Caxton and just anyone who becomes his water brother. He nurtures them like they're his own children or grandchildren. He just welcomes them. That's the line. I didn't find it here, but it's taking care of your brother's sons. Yes. So to merge, to blend, to intermarry. Right? And this is 1961. You heard? This is right. This is before a lot of shit. Kennedy's still alive in this book. I mean, they just say the President of the United States, but I like to think of Kennedy. It could have been Ike. I kind of like Eisenhower too. I appreciate what he said in his exiting speech about the military-industrial complex. That was a good speech. So they're in this courtroom. There's all this intrigue. Right, he sent a letter ahead of time. They acted like they're not going to read it. Secretary Douglas has insisted on them all meeting at 10 a.m., but he told everyone else to show up at 11 because he wanted to try to negotiate ahead of time. And Jubal Harshaw's like, no, we're gonna be in the room with the reporters. We're not going into any private meetings with you. Fuck that. It's like, yeah, he doesn't. There's no swearing in this book. They'll say things like, he said something earthy, or like, it's always very suggestive. He's got a very nuanced way of getting around censors, and I appreciate that. And I imagine he's probably paranoid at the time, considering that William S. Burroughs, author of Naked Lunch, was arrested and put on trial around that time for Naked Lunch. So, yeah. Naked Lunch, if you can handle graphic description, that is, if you can endure the nastiness, that is one of the coolest fucking books that has ever been written. It's non-linear, it's surreal, it's got all the satire, they're both Stranger in a Strange Land and Naked Lunch are heavily influenced by Jonathan Swift, author of Modest Proposal and Gulliver's Travels, and just an all-around funny dude. I'm also a big fan of Gulliver's Travels. It's one of the first novels I ever read, along with Willy fucking Wonka. So, where was I? Lost is where I am. Lost in the Poconos. Baconese. Look at these. I lost my train of thought. We're in DC now. We're at the courtroom. There's all this intrigue. We're coming back into it. Okay, so there's all these power plays, but everything was decided behind the scenes and beforehand. They all knew what they were going to do. Harshaw had his letter ready to go. Douglas was trying to get this meeting because he knew what he wanted, and they wanted to just have some political theater to show the rest of the world that they were talking about it, like to demonstrate the decision that they had just passed notes to each other like school children. And, the decision was brilliant. It's brilliant because, okay, let's back up. There's this thing in the book called the Larkin decision, where a corporation called General Atomics, all these governments are trying to get to the moon first. They're trying to decide who owns the moon. Okay. General Atomics, the corporation, gets there first and basically plants their flag and says, this is ours. A bunch of governments all get together and say, can he do this? Are we going to let this stand? And what they said is the corporation, basically the opposite of Citizens United. They said the corporation can't own the moon, but the people who run that corporation can. So the Larkin decision has to do with CEO Mr. Larkin and associates are now the owners of the moon for General Atomics. General Atomics starts a separate corporation called Lunar Enterprises. Michael Valentine Smith inherits shares of Lunar Enterprises, like to the point where he has an ownership stake, because he inherits everything that all the crew members had, and none of them are broke. Right? They're all experts in their fields. They're established experts in their fields. They've been highly paid in their field for a long time. So none of them are broke. They all did well on their investments, all this stuff. So he inherits the whole crew. Specifically, the married couple that he was born to, the mom cheated with the captain, and as soon as the mom died in childbirth, and he killed the captain and then himself. No. So Michael Valentine Smith inherited all this property, all this stock. He's now the owner of all these companies. He's the richest man on earth. Michael Valentine Smith in this story has become the richest man on earth through just luck, really, through birth and being the chosen one. You know, because Joseph Campbell was doing his thing around the same time too. Anyways, the chosen one, right? So he's spoiler alert, he's the Jesus of the story. So I'm so lost. Larkin decision. They act like he's the king of Mars just because he's the representative. If he's the only human being who owns Mars, therefore he owns the whole planet. Even though it's inhabited by actual fucking Martians, he's the owner, because that's colonialism for you. So what they do is, Harshaw basically says he's an ambassador to Mars. He's not the king. Mars is inhabited. It's ridiculous to assume that we have any claim to ownership. And in reality, the Martians will just make them disappear if they tried. They will just undo their existence with the snap of their fingers. And that literally, they say 90 degrees from everything. I made them not. It's spectacular. This is brilliant. Harshaw says that Michael Valentine Smith, on behalf of Michael Valentine Smith, he would like Secretary Douglas as an individual, as Joseph Douglas, not as Secretary General. So even when even if he resigns from his position of power, he will always have access to this, and he's going to be he has a power of attorney over all these assets. And Jubal Harshaw describes it as grabbing the tiger by the ears and riding on its back. Harshaw explains his reasoning further by just saying, you don't want money, you don't want to make money, you just want to spend it. If you understood what it was like to be as wealthy as Michael Valentine Smith, especially if you didn't earn it, it's a curse. He says great wealth is a curse. You don't want that kind of burden, because then you spend all your time paranoid. You worry, you're basically looking over your shoulder, and you can't trust anyone wants to be your friend because they're your friend. They just want your money. And people who actually have money, who are rich enough to appreciate how rich you are, don't want to be mistaken for a beggar, so they don't want to hang around you because all these beggars are hanging around you. So it's an interesting mindset. It does make me wonder when I'm comparing this to Musk. It definitely was a lot of food for thought. I like, on the one hand, in the grokking and empathy and like hating, becoming what you hate, and hating yourself. Like I guess I have some empathy for that, but also, haha, you read this book and then became that rich and then didn't learn any of the lessons. That's tragic and humorous, much like this book. But yeah, so he's like, yeah, I could have stolen it. I'm his lawyer. I could have written this all. I could have made myself his power of attorney. It's like, I don't want that burden. I'm old. I want to sleep in my own bed and worry about my own life. There's a really interesting. There's a couple mentions of it throughout the book of a comparison between Apollonian and Dionysian households. The Martians, of course, are Apollonian, right? Apollo. So they're very stoic. They don't want to get emotional. They're all very logical and very reasoned. Jubal Harshaw, he's like, everyone eats whenever they want. They can help themselves to anything in the fridge. You don't have to wear clothes. You can just walk around naked. I don't care. Like, it's not my business. As long as you're comfortable, you can come and go as you please. If you have to go somewhere, you're not locked in or out. If you're the type of person I would invite into my house, you have unlimited guest privileges. He doesn't have any judgments. He's just like, life is one big party for him. It's very Dionysian. So throughout the whole story, it's one of the cool ways that Robert Heinlein subverts the hero's journey. Is he talks about Michael Valentine Smith is a man of both worlds from the beginning of the story. His apotheosis and the ultimate boon and all that has to do with self-actualizing in two realms at once, right? And that, for me, that's like the loudest. Like, there's so many references, like oblique references to autism in here. Like, I think this is a really important book. Anyone who feels like a two-spirit, or trans, or that it's definitely more of a book for people on the left for a variety of reasons. I think that it appeals to autistic people more than anyone else. Michael Valentine Smith, he gets very overwhelmed when people are emotional around him. He's hypersensitive to all those feelings and all that emotion, and shuts down real easy. Takes a long time to grok, which, emotionally process everything going on. There's many, like, you just read this book as an autistic. I read this book as an autistic person, and I am Michael Valentine Smith. It's really hard to separate myself from the character when certain parts are just like Amelia Bedelia. Just if you ask him a question, he's gonna answer literally. So it's like, can you or will you please? He's like, oh yes I can, and then just sits there. It's like, would you? Oh yeah, sure, of course. Like, he's just not right. It's everything's very literal, and so I find that relatable. There's a lot of self-actualization going on, and the boons, the ultimate boonness, flows both ways. Where he has lessons he wants to teach humanity, and humanity has lessons to teach him. So he wants to teach about togetherness. One of the main phrases, like sayings in the book, is waiting is. A Martian sense of time is much longer. They have a very long-term attitude about time. So he's teaching about Martian attitudes, about appreciating water, appreciating friendships, appreciating, just relationships, appreciating life and the interconnectedness of everything. The humans, he doesn't understand jokes, so they have to teach him humor. He's never seen a human woman before. He's only seen Martian nymphs, and so he has to grok femininity. There's this really cool part, because he's just buying gifts for all his friends. He's wealthier than anyone else. You could just, right? So he just sees things in magazines like, oh, I think you would like that. Oh, I think you would like that. So he starts buying up all these classic statues for Jubal, and he gets the statue of David. He gets Michelangelo's David. He gets Rodin's The Courtesan, and he pontificates about why the courtesan. Harshaw pontificates about why the courtesan is his favorite statue. He talks about layers of talent and layers of this is also part of Grok. Like, he says the word Grok well over 100. He invented this word and uses it in a sentence probably 100 times. I'm not sitting here counting it, but it's said a lot. It's like, I grok, you grok, we grok, thou art God, God groks, God is that which groks. over and over and over again. This is really he's trying to teach you some stuff. Heinlein is trying to teach you some stuff. He's given you some hard lessons all throughout this book. One of the ones is about recognizing Marx, like Marx versus Rubes. The people, the con men versus Rubes, and that's one of the lessons that Michael Valentine Smith learns about, is how to use that to promote religion. There's the Fosterites, there's Bishop Digby, there's Foster himself, who's now an old one, like a Martian old one, and there's sorry, that's a bit of a spoiler. Fuck, sorry. So there's Foster, who's the leader of this, and it's got very much like a Mormon crossed with the mega churches crossed with Scientology. It's very much that, like, oh, you guys are the new kids on the block, and you guys are making a mockery of the old ways. And then there's a part where Harshaw's an atheist, so he's always like, well, who's to say who's right? He studies, he doesn't want to discount anything, so he spends every other day thinking the universe is ever expanding, and on the other days he's like, the universe is closing in on itself. Basically, he's a funny guy. He's a very well written character. I make a lot of connections to other books I read, and you can tell that how much of an impact it had on other sci-fi based on the parallels with Dune. I think about the Mentats. Like in this story, they have witnesses, fair witnesses. They don this white cloak, and they're not supposed to be acknowledged. They're supposed to be just like, I don't see you, I don't hear you. You know, I look at you and I see the wall behind you. That kind of deal. And that's all to be like an impartial witness. And they can't express themselves in any other, like, legally speaking, they're not allowed to say. They're trained to speak literally, to the point where if you showed them a building, like that building over there, is that building, this side is, you see, is painted pink. Most people would be like, the whole building's painted pink. It's like, from what I can see at this vantage point, it looks like this side of this building is painted pink. There's like all these qualifiers, all this. It's very precise language. It's you have to ask specific questions if you want specific answers, and they're trained to have perfect memory, just like the Martians. And they really try to hammer home. Heinlein really tries to hammer home that Michael Valentine Smith is a human who was raised among Martians and was taught Martian ways. That this is something that we as human beings can aspire to. Now, I like to think of it in more of a Matilda kind of way, because one of the things that Michael Valentine Smith is going to teach them, once they learn how to speak Martian, they're able to use telekinesis. They're able to speak in thoughts and hear each other's thoughts. They're able to control things from great distances. They can undo a human life from a great distance. They have all these telekinesis powers. I like to think of it like Matilda. Like, the Martians are so smart that they've developed powers of the mind. It's not something I feel like maybe Elon takes it literally, and he's like, well, you can't literally do these things. There aren't literally Martians. Now, I mean, probably not. Probably not. But we sent, in the book, they sent a probe, and there's nothing. They go around the planet, and there's nothing. They land as humans on Mars for the first time, and then there's a problem. So I don't know. I probably not. There's probably no life on Mars, but that would be pretty unfortunate for Elon Musk if there was. And so I like to hold out a little bit of hope. I think it would be cool as fuck. I mean, it would suck when they decide to kill us, like the 3-body problem. That part would suck. But up until that point, I think it would be neat. I think it would be fascinating. So I don't want to give up. I don't want to give up the dream of ghosts nor Martians, nor telekinesis. There's something. There's more to the story than what we know. And the only way to find out is to ask questions and test hypotheses. That's just a random. In the book, he's got all these telekinesis powers. There's humans are going to teach him about sex. And so the first time he kisses Jill, he's underwater. He's just made a bunch of police officers disappear, and he's making out with Jill underwater. And they talk about it later, and she's talking about what a great kisser he is, like right off the bat. And then they all get curious and want to take turns kissing him, and one of the assistants faints, like she's just like, ah, and then they're like fighting over a chance to make out with him. And some of that is some puerile, it's fantasy, it's wishful fulfillment, and so you could tell where Musk got some of the wrong messages. I mean, I've already pointed out a lot of it. So the Fosterites, I got way off track with that. So they don't think of things in traditional Christian ways. They think that their foster guy is the guy, and he's their prophet, right? Just like Jesus and Moses and Muhammad, he's their prophet. And they want to turn a profit. They make everything, like gambling is a sin, and they will form a mob and beat gamblers to death. But then they'll go to their church, and there's a casino in the church, and as long as they spend their money in the church, it's okay. And then they excommunicate a guy, possibly murder, because again, if it's church sanctioned, it's okay. So they're pretty violent, and they control politics through aggression. There's no parallels about that in modern times. No siree, Joseph Douglas. Not at all. Nope. So yeah. Anyways, they form violent mobs, and they'll do what they gotta. They do what they feel is necessary to maintain and build power. And they have church-sanctioned gambling, and they have church-sanctioned orgies, and they also, much like the Martians, will discorporate willfully and just choose to go up into heaven. And there's a whole ceremony for that, for the Fosterites. and just like the Martians. So Michael Valentine Smith gets drawn towards them, and ends up forming his own opinions along the way, and it's so he starts a sex cult, and he's got all these members and like the initiation, and he's very slick with it. Like the very first time, I'd say the first 2 times I read this book, I didn't pick up on the like autism social cues. He's very subtle when he says Jillian is busy. Jill is busy with the initiates. I missed that the first couple times I read that. The first couple times I read it, I thought, oh, cool, the men get to have sex with all the women they want, and the women just sit there and don't. They just take it. And that was not a mature viewpoint on my part when I first read this. I missed that. I've had to reread it a few times to be like, oh, no, that Jill has sex with the entire congregation basically every night. It's like they're all her water brothers, and it's basically like that whole free use kind of situation. So they're just like, yeah, just like I consent. We're all water brothers, and we're all just walking around here naked, and I consent. I feel horny, you feel horny. Let's get it on. It's a sex cult, and so he's teaching all of them Martian ways. So at certain levels they're just the rubes, and he's if they believe what he's saying even a little bit, he starts working them through the ranks until they're part of his inner circle. Yeah, it's pretty much just sex and money and sex and money. I want to. I'm concerned because I've already given away quite a bit of the finale. He's the new Jesus with everything that applies. He's Martian Jesus in this story, and the money, like Martians don't believe in property. They're commies. They don't believe in property. They don't believe in money. They don't understand country barriers. Basically, if you're not a Martian, you're a threat, and as soon as they grok you, they will make you not. They will undo your existence, and they will praise and cherish the memory of you. It's pretty fucking intense. And they believe in cannibalism. And like to grok also means a stew, and you are grokking with, when they make you into a stew, you are grokking with the ingredients, and as they're eating you, they are grokking with you and the stew. That's all part of the meaning of grok. It's to consume, to absorb, to fully, because everything is connected, to be fully one with another being, and to grow closer sexually is to grok. Is to grok each other, on grokking hard, grokking with passion. So it means all those things. So it's a Martian concept, so it doesn't fit into human words, but it's all of these things and none of these things, because it's about understanding and empathy. He's really trying to hit this point home throughout the book about the meaning of grok. But yeah, so it's got free love, all that kind of hippie stuff, and it's got it's very much pro polyamory, and that was pretty dang new of a concept at the time. He's talking about like one of the married couples that rises through the ranks so quickly that they're like mentioned at the end, and then they barely play any role in the story. But to say this, it's like before we joined this congregation, we were married and unhappily married, and I didn't even feel like I was a top 10 priority for him. The wife was saying this about the husband. So I didn't feel like I was a top 10 priority in his life. I didn't think he cared about me at all. It's like now that we have an open relationship, I think I'm in his top 5. I feel loved. I feel like I'm in his top 5. He's way more attentive to me than he's ever been. But that was a powerful endorsement of polyamory in this book. Generally speaking, it's the message is kind of anti-Christian. It makes fun of mega churches hardcore throughout the book. It's anti-technology in a lot of ways. There's like Harshaw in particular is like, I don't trust any of it. These newfangled machines, get off my lawn. He does actually do a whole get off my lawn bit, because the police park in his rose bushes, and then Smith makes him disappear, and then the reporters, like the same day for separate reasons, the reporters show up on his lawn and they land on the rose bushes. He's just like, get off my lawn. I'll sue you for damage. But he's the best. He's the old man we all aspire to be. I cannot stress this enough. He's an inspiration. He's an inspiration. He's an inspiration. He's an inspiration to us all. Yeah. So I mean, it's not subtle. it's kind of it's pretty in your face about that it is satire, that the government is out to get you. Harshaw repeatedly refers to the police as the SS. They actually are like the Secret Service, but the SS, like the Gestapo. This is a one world government. Any semblance of democracy is a farce in this scenario, and people's free will is what they're willing to fight for. And Harshaw's fights. He fights every step of the way. He does not let a politician or anyone in authority get away with a single fucking thing. He speaks truth to power all the time. He never lets anyone. Yeah, it's a shame that Musk is nowhere near that, and only vaguely and incorrectly similar to Michael Valentine Smith. He really he doesn't grok this shit at all. It's a lot. You should read it. I've said a lot already. You should read it. It's important. It's quickly. Just quickly. It's almost 6 in the morning right now. I'm tired. So stranger in a strange land. The Doors of Perception. Island. You really want to read Brave New World, then Doors of Perception, and then Island, in that order when it comes to Aldous Huxley. Island especially, you need to read Dune, not just the first one. You need to read at least all 6 of the originals, but then like some others. All of the beatnik stuff is super important right now. But Naked Lunch, they're all trying to tell you how the hustle goes, how to play the game, how to survive the game, how to notice when people are playing the game at you, when people are trying to manipulate you and fuck with you, You will hear it a little. You will be a little more familiar having read certain books. I'm telling you about it now. You want to read these books and get your head oriented, because we're in this time now. Right? So again, I still haven't read Siddhartha, but it's part of this. I'm sure of it. It absolutely is. Tropic of Cancer probably is too, but I haven't read that, and I'm not. I just know it was one of the ones that went on trial and they tried to ban it. But they've tried to ban some really silly books for some really silly reasons. It's hard to take that seriously. Yeah. We are our individual selves, and we are part of a collective whole. Now, in the Martian state of mind, it's all part of the collective whole. They are deists. I might be wrong about that. Now, another way that I think of it, and I've only read about it in a book called Zero Limits, which is it is an inappropriate book about with full of cultural appropriation, but it's got the same core message. And the same core message kind of permeates along a lot of different parts of society. We are part of the same thing, or thing. You and me, and the phone I'm recording on, and the table it's sitting on, and the floor I'm in, the chair, and the air I'm breathing, and anyone that you're interacting with, and all the animals, and all the plants, and all the fungi, and all the bacterium, and every molecule, and every atom, all of it is part of one interwoven fabric. You pull one string here and you don't know what the fuck you're moving around. Which, on the one hand, is terrifying, but on the other hand, you gotta live your life somehow, man. Do what you gotta do. We're all part of the same stuff. With that awareness, we can be like, oh, this table was made in China, probably by children. They probably weren't paid adequately. There's probably some kind of ruling class going on. We should be concerned about that, but also, I needed a table. That's why it's confusing. To amend that confusion, Mr. Michael Valentine Smith, our main character, undergoes copious amounts of meditation. There's a whole system in place. He's talking about level 1 awareness, level 2 awareness, level 3 awareness. He's talking about, and I love this in Dune too, with the sisterhood, so deeply in tune with their bodies, their own bodies, that they can control ovulation without medication. They're so attuned to their own bodies that they can slow their heart rate down to nothing. And that's exactly what Michael Valentine Smith does at the beginning of this book. About it, and I haven't read Siddhartha yet. I'm looking forward to it. It's the 1960s. You were there. I was there. We were all there, man. It was beautiful. Dig it? It's a lovely place, and we're evolving and whatnot, and we're growing into a sort of consciousness, and we're becoming more aware of our surroundings, and we're becoming more aware of our role in society and how that influences the government that we elected, and how they've tricked us into this and that, and how we're fighting wars that we shouldn't be involved in, all this stuff. So it's a woven fabric, and the first step of that is to be aware that you are you, they are they. This is called theory of mind, and we'll probably have to cover that in the mental health episode, one of the mental health episodes. It's a problem with autism, is that we have trouble with theory of mind. One of the things I love about the beginning of Stranger in Strange Land is where he's trying to learn English, and he's super smart. Like he's basically he hears a sentence, and he already understands language completely. He completely understands language. We're coming around. We're coming back around. Everything is connected. All right. So he understands the concept of language. So he's trying to analyze what people mean. And so one person's like, his doctor is like, how do you feel? And he's like, oh, my doctor is wondering how I feel. And I should probably tell him he's probably more concerned about my body than my emotions, so I'm going to focus on my physical symptoms. Is to fully understand first yourself, then the other person. How do you feel? Well, they don't really care how I feel. They just are saying hello, but in a different way. Say, fine, and you? Right? Or the doctor. How do you feel? Well, I'm suffering from my change in gravity and all this stuff, and I feel weak. I'm hungry, but I also don't want to eat. Yeah, describing symptoms. And when he says, how do you feel, he means, how's your body right now? What's going on with you? In the world, you understand yourself so thoroughly, and how you have a relationship with this. Whatever it is. Is it another man, another woman, a trans person, black, white, gay, straight? You have to be like, what are they thinking? What are they feeling? This is about theory of mind. In order to grok, you have to have passed a couple steps. You have to have understood yourself. You have to have understood that there's theory of mind. And then you have to understand your relationship to them in order to properly grok. Everything is connected. We are in a web, a food web. It's not a chain. There's no apex. Right? Right? Human beings may be apex predators, but let's see you go off and wrestle a crocodile. Maybe they work out a lot, but that belly roll, man, that's gonna get you. Our place in this world has to do with how we interact with each other. Our place in this world is how we understand nature. The fact that we ask these questions, the fact that we're like, how did this work? Where does this stuff come from? Why does that happen? When we ask these questions and we keep digging deeper and deeper and deeper into these things, we explore a whole new realm to where each level that we go down, we feel like, man, I was dumb as fuck 5 minutes ago. And then the next day, man, I was dumb as fuck yesterday. And next week, man, I was so fucking stupid last week. And the month after that, it's like, man, I really fucked up last month. And then sooner or later, you're just awesome. Because you just keep practicing being a little better than the day before. And you have to understand a little deeper than the day before. You can't just stay here and be like, I'm going to be the best money guy. I'm going to be the best musician. I'm going to be the best philosopher. I'm going to be the best scientist. You got to be the best you can be, and whatever your interests are, you pursue those, and then whatever's next to those interests, you pursue those, and whatever's next to those interests, you pursue those, and whatever's next to the next to the next, you keep going. And you ask yourself why. You ask yourself how can I help? Is a good start. How does this benefit my nestlings? For I am only an egg. Right? I don't understand. I need to grok further. There's no end to this process. There's not a point where I have grokked. I am done grokking. You're in a continual state of grokitude for all of grok kind. You just go. That's it. You're just always trying to understand how things work together on a deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper level. And that's awesome, right? It gets you connected to people. You have a sense of community, even if you're alone in your room. You can look out into the world and you can be like, oh, isn't that wonderful? I have brothers out there. I have people who feel the way I do or think the way I do. Someone out there knows what the fuck I'm going through. You can't have that technology without money as a foundation. We can't have that interconnectedness without money as a foundation. We can't reach that next level that we don't understand and don't know about without having some sort of capitalism as a foundation. The next level, when we get there, is a level where, and we're already there on halfway, where things can coexist. But we have the technology and we can become the organizations that distribute the technology and distribute whatever goods we produce throughout. We can be an organization. We can be a corporation or something. And it's just, we have our production. We grow what we grow. We do what we do. And we release it to the world. And the community is better for it. I think that would be pretty cool. Look too deep to see that Elon doesn't understand what the word Grok means. Because right here on his very own website, he's like, it's based on the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Which, don't get me wrong, is another amazing sci-fi book that I love very much. That he should keep those names out of his fucking mouth, is what he needs to do. If he needs to grok what the fuck he's grokking about, or he needs to grok the grok. No, he needs to shut the fuck up, and he doesn't grok shit. Grok has meaning. It's not a word you can just throw around. It means total understanding. I think he's thinking of deep thought. So deep thought, right? And then deep thought 2, which is the Earth. This planet that we're all standing on right now. Not Mars. Not fucking Mars. Right here, right now. That's deep thought 2, right? I mean, I don't remember, and I'm not reading 6 books to talk about this one other book that, because I didn't even know about this when I started doing this essay. I was just looking at this right now, and I'm just like, what the fuck, man? Like what in the ever loving fuck is wrong with this motherfucker? Like, if you don't want to read the books, that's one thing, but don't insult our intelligence. Like, what the hell, dude? Just because you don't know how to read, Elon. Deep thought and Grok have many parallels, for sure. But to Grok is this whole other level. To be alive is to Grok. To be conscious is the act of grokking. To have empathy and to be part of the creation process is to grok. This is a whole nother. And this guy is, the way he talks to himself through multiple accounts on Twitter is basically like Zyphoid Beeblebrook's. Zaphod, sorry. Zyphoid. No. Anyways, whatever. Zyphoid is something else. Zaphod Beeblebrook's. That's like a word you could hear him say. Him and Trump together, that's Zaphod Beeblebrook's right there. For sure. Fucking site. This is just garbage through and through. It's like, whew. But why are we building Grok? Well, because it's so hot. It's a really popular topic in Silicon Valley right now, and you wouldn't want to fall behind, would you, Musk? You wouldn't want to fall behind because you spent all day playing on Twitter and playing video games, and you forgot about life, and so now you can't. Now you can't do shit. So you have to just throw a bunch of money at it and hope that you can profit from it as fast as everyone else because you're behind, so you have to catch up. Gather feedback and ensure. I'm sure you want to gather some feedback. Yeah, like you gather feedback from your freaking gas stations and how you can gather feedback for the police so quickly. We see how you gather your feedback. We want to empower our users with AI tools subject to the law. You mean like every other freaking AI company, that you're going to have the same censorship bullshit because you're all using the same open AI tools that you stole and with the open software that you all didn't create? With that shit? Okay then. Yeah. Yeah, it's just a load of crap. I feel sorry for the guy in some ways, but it's also scary. So it would be more tragic if it wasn't so terrifying, I guess. But again, there's a lot. This is easy. This here is easy because it's not so much that like it's hard to boycott all AI, but you could boycott this AI. That you could do like easily. Right? You might be stuck with Google AI, or I don't know. It'll permeate everywhere. It's already happening. The Singularity. I haven't even read that book yet. I hope I get a chance to. It looks interesting. You can buy other cars. You can buy other EV cars. Fuck Tesla. What are you doing with the Tesla? Look, he's showing his ass to the whole world, and you're sitting there trying to buy his cars. What the hell, dudes? That's not good for the environment. Get your shit together. So I'll leave you with this. The world is like a ride in an amusement park. This is from Bill Hicks. Bibliography stuff. Okay, the world is like a ride in an amusement park. And goes, it has thrills and chills, it's very brightly colored, it's very loud, it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride a long time. They begin to question, is this real or is this just a ride? And other people, they come back to us and they remember, don't worry, don't be afraid ever, because it's just a ride. And we kill those people. Ugh. He's such a brilliant man. You guys should just watch his stand-up instead of hearing me talk. You'd be better off for it. You should have watched his stand-up 10 years ago instead of listening to Joe Rogan. You would have been a better person for it. That's neither here nor there. We're going to talk about some other stuff. What about my big bank account? It's just a ride. What about my family? Just a ride. And we can change it anytime we want. You, me, everyone. It's just a choice. A choice right here, right now, between fear and love. In the eyes of fear, we choose war, hatred, competition, etc. In the eyes of love, we choose cooperation. We choose, right, together. It's all connected, right? We acknowledge the connection. It's the same earth, the same materials, the same systems that are already in place right now. It's only a choice between fear and love. If you listen to fear, fear will win. If you listen to how scared these fuckers are, they're scared of shit. They can't love. I struggle with loving. It's hard. I'm a very fearful person. I'm not sitting here judging them like I'm not a fearful person. But in fairness, the last 20 years have been fearful times. I'm pretty well trained at this point. We all are. And it's conscious effort. It takes meditation and awareness and wokeness. What they're trying to do there is trying to trick you into staying ignorant so that you can stay stupid and do whatever they say to get what they want. And what they want is to fucking eat you. They're going to eat you first. Every time you post "eat the rich," they're just they're doing that. They're doing all I got is this stuff here. So they're going like right. They're the knife and fork. They're getting ready. They got their bib. They're just they're hungry, man. They're like gobble gobble, none of us. And y'all better recognize you're getting fat on purpose. They're getting you fat on purpose. They're getting you on that McDonald's, and you should be on that iTowel. They're getting you on that. They're getting you on that Chipotle, and you need to be growing your own Shay. I don't know. Whatever. You gotta do what you gotta do. But it's fear and love. Figure out who your wilder brothers are. Get together. Get your own compounds going. Get your own situations going. Don't let the rich fuckers have all the fun without you. And they don't even know what's going on. They don't know shit. They know about half as much as you do. They just got lucky as fuck in all kinds of ways, probably starting with when, where, and how they were born. And from there, you need to take care of yourself. I hope you're taking care of yourself.